thought humans were weak. They underestimated us, thinking we were just another species struggling to survive. But they were wrong. When they saw the fury of a single human, they realized just how huge a mistake they'd made. The aliens, let's call them the Voraakians, had done their research. They thought they had us figured out. Earth, after all, is a dangerous place to live. We fight wars, face natural disasters, and struggle to even agree on what's right. So, when the Voraakians arrived with their superior technology, they figured we'd be an easy target. What were we, after all, compared to them? A bunch of primitive beings on a planet filled with violence and chaos. They'd seen our history: wars, famines, poverty, and division. To them, we were just a speck in the universe, ready to be conquered. But then something happened, something they never expected. They made the fatal mistake of underestimating us. When they attacked, they didn't account for the one thing that could turn everything upside down: the unseen strength that runs deep in humanity. The one thing that no one could predict was rage. Let me tell you about Kian, a mechanic, just an ordinary man, trying to get by in life. He wasn't a soldier or a strategist, but when the aliens invaded, something snapped. This wasn't about technology or superior weapons. This was about sheer, unstoppable human rage. Kian became the embodiment of Earth's spirit, a force that couldn't be tamed, even by an alien army. What happened next? The Voraakians, thinking they had us cornered, were forced to retreat. Kian, a man who never asked for this fight, turned the tide of an entire invasion. He wasn't alone, but his actions showed the aliens something they could never have predicted about us. Humans may seem weak at first, but when pushed to the brink, we'll show the universe just how dangerous we can be. You're probably thinking, how could a single person make that much of a difference? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. Stay with me, because what happened next will change how you see humanity's true power. Imagine a world where humans were considered insignificant, where we were written off as weak and primitive by alien species that saw themselves as far superior. This was the reality for the Voraakians, an alien race that had been conquering planets for centuries. They had conquered worlds with far more advanced civilizations, so Earth was just another stop on their list. They studied us, observed our wars and conflicts, and saw a species divided by politics, power struggles, and endless conflicts. From their perspective, it was easy to assume that humans were no match for their superior technology and vast resources. The Voraakians had advanced weapons, ships that could tear through the fabric of space, and fleets that could obliterate entire armies without breaking a sweat. They were powerful, efficient, and ruthless in their conquests. They had never met a species like us before, and their arrogance led them to believe we'd be easy prey. They weren't prepared for the fight humanity would put up, not because of our weapons, but because of something far more dangerous: our rage. Here's the thing: the Voraakians and many other alien species didn't understand Earth. They didn't understand the relentless drive that courses through our veins, the way our ancestors fought to survive in the harshest conditions. Humans have lived on a death world, Earth, a place where survival is an ongoing struggle. We've fought for food, shelter, and freedom. We've battled through natural disasters, disease, and war, and yet we've always come out on the other side, scarred but stronger. Let me explain what I mean. Humans have something that no alien race has ever truly understood: an undying will to fight. Earth is a planet full of chaos, but that chaos is exactly what makes us who we are. It's why we're survivors. When faced with danger, we don't back down. We dig deeper, push harder, and fight even when it seems hopeless. This is a mentality that the Voraakians never saw coming. The moment they set foot on Earth, they thought we'd roll over. But as they started their invasion, they quickly realized something. The humans they'd underestimated, those they had dismissed as weak, were starting to show signs of resistance. And it wasn't the kind of resistance they expected. There were no grand armies at first, no massive weapons to threaten their fleet. What they saw instead was something far more unpredictable. It was the sudden outburst of human rage, an emotion that could take anyone by surprise. You see, rage isn't just anger. It's a deep, burning emotion that fuels action. It makes people do things they never thought they could. And that's exactly what happened when Kian, an ordinary mechanic, was pushed to his limits. He didn't have a high rank or any special training. He was just a man trying to survive. But when the Voraakians attacked, something inside of him clicked. The Voraakians had done what so many others before them had done. They poked the wrong bear. Kian didn't just fight for survival. He fought because he was fed up. He was tired of seeing his world fall apart at the hands of others. He was tired of being seen as weak and insignificant. He fought because he had something to prove. And when Kian fought, he didn't hold back. His rage was a storm, something that not even the most advanced alien technology could stop. What they didn't realize was that humanity's strength wasn't in the weapons we had. It wasn't in the gadgets or technology. It was in the unpredictable power of the human spirit. So, while the Voraakians thought they were conquering a species that barely had a chance, they were about to discover that they had just stepped into the lion's den. Earth wasn't like the other planets they had taken. Earth was a place of survival. And Kian's rage was the spark that would ignite the fire. But how did this ordinary mechanic turn the tide? How did his rage lead to something that would stop an entire alien invasion in its tracks? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down. Kian wasn't just a man in the right place at the right time. He was something far more important. He was the living, breathing proof of humanity's true potential. When the Voraakians first arrived on Earth, they looked at humanity with an air of superiority. To them, we were an insignificant species, a fleeting blip in the vast expanse of the galaxy. They had conquered planets far more advanced than ours, worlds with civilizations boasting technology far beyond anything we could even dream of. So, when the Voraakians turned their attention to Earth, they believed the outcome was already decided. We were weak, primitive, and easily manipulated. What they didn't see, however, was that we weren't just survivors. We were survivors with something the Voraakians had never encountered before, a deep-seated will to fight. The Voraakians, like many other alien races, were accustomed to dealing with species that relied on logic, reason, and diplomacy. They were used to negotiating with other civilizations or crushing them through overwhelming force, systems that had already been honed by centuries of conquest. They had mastered the art of subjugation, relying on their superior technology and weaponry to put entire worlds under their control. It was the same strategy they planned to use on Earth, and it made sense to them. After all, look at the state of humanity. We were constantly at war with each other, battling over borders, resources, and ideologies. We had no united front. We had no global peace. And on top of that, Earth was a volatile, chaotic planet, an unpredictable environment that constantly tested our survival skills. To the Voraakians, Earth was a world full of division, weakness, and internal strife. It was a planet where humans couldn't even get along with each other, let alone put up a strong defense against an advanced alien force. Why waste time negotiating or trying to understand our cultures when they could simply overwhelm us with firepower? Their arrogance, however, clouded their judgment. They underestimated the resilience that ran through every human being. They overlooked something crucial, the way humans respond when pushed to the edge. We might fight each other, yes, but when an external force threatens everything we hold dear, something deep inside awakens. It's the same spirit that has kept humanity alive on this harsh and dangerous planet. The Voraakians didn't understand this about us. They assumed our internal struggles made us weak. But they missed the core of what it means to be human, our ability to unite in the face of adversity and the untapped strength that lies dormant until it's needed most. And so, when the Voraakians arrived, they didn't encounter a world that crumbled under their pressure. Instead, they encountered a species with a deep primal rage, a rage that could be unleashed when they least expected it. It wasn't just about defense. It wasn't just about survival. It was about retribution, about showing the invaders that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they could make. Kian, a mechanic who had no special training or military background, would soon prove this point to the aliens. He wasn't alone in his rage, but his story is the one that would forever change the Voraakians' perception of humanity. His actions would make it clear that we weren't weak. We were just waiting for the right moment to strike back. Kian had never considered himself a hero. In fact, he was far from it. He was just an ordinary mechanic, a man who worked long hours fixing machinery and maintaining the heavy equipment that kept the city running. His life was simple, filled with the steady hum of machines and the occasional greasy handprint on his overalls. He didn't have a grand purpose, a heroic calling, or any sort of military training. Yet, when the Voraakians arrived, it was Kian who would become the spark that ignited the fire of human resistance. What made Kian different from everyone else? What set him apart from the rest of humanity? It wasn't his physical strength, his skills with machines, or his knowledge of technology. It was something deeper, something that most outsiders would never understand. Kian was a product of Earth's harsh environment, a Deathworlder through and through. You see, Earth isn't a gentle place. It's a brutal world where survival often comes at the cost of everything else. The planet's natural conditions constantly challenge its inhabitants, forcing them to adapt in ways that aren't seen on most other planets in the galaxy. Earth is a death world, a world where every living thing has to fight tooth and nail to survive. The plants, animals, and humans alike face dangers every day, whether it's from fierce predators, deadly weather patterns, or the sheer unpredictability of the environment. On Earth, you either adapt or you don't survive. And Kian had adapted. He'd grown up in the rougher parts of the city, where the constant struggle for food, shelter, and safety shaped him into someone who could weather just about any storm. As a mechanic, he had worked in environments where danger was never far away. He had repaired machines under extreme conditions, fixed broken-down vehicles while dodging incoming gunfire, and even navigated the unstable, post-apocalyptic ruins of war zones. Every challenge he faced only made him tougher. He had seen the worst that Earth had to offer, and somehow he had always found a way to keep going. But Kian's true strength wasn't in his ability to endure pain or hardship. It was in his unpredictability, in the raw rage that could surge within him when pushed too far. When the Voraakians landed, they didn't know what kind of planet they were walking into. They thought they were facing a disjointed, uncoordinated species, one that would bend under pressure and offer little resistance. But what they didn't understand was that Earth's Deathworlders were different from anything they had encountered before. Kian was the epitome of Earth's resilience. He wasn't just some helpless human caught in the middle of an invasion. No, Kian was a Deathworlder, a being forged by a world that required its inhabitants to push past their limits just to survive. He had spent his entire life surrounded by adversity, learning how to fight for every breath, every day. The idea of backing down wasn't in his DNA. And so, when the Voraakians made their move, Kian didn't think twice. He didn't hesitate. He didn't cower or wait for orders. He reacted instinctively and violently. The moment the alien forces took one of his friends, it was as though something inside Kian snapped. The rage that had been simmering beneath the surface for years suddenly boiled over, and he unleashed a fury that no alien had ever expected. His hands, which were used to turning wrenches and repairing gears, became instruments of destruction. He didn't need fancy weapons or high-tech gadgets. His rage, that primal raw emotion, was enough to turn the tide of battle. Kian's transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. The Voraakians, who had confidently assumed Earth's inhabitants would be easy pickings, were quickly introduced to the fury of a Deathworlder. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for anger. And worse, they had failed to see the collective power of millions of Kians, all fueled by the same primal rage. And this wasn't just about Kian fighting for survival. It was about something deeper, something more personal. It was about revenge. It was about showing the Voraakians that humanity would never be cowed, never be crushed under their boots. For Kian, the fight wasn't just about saving his city or even his world. It was about making a statement. The Voraakians had thought of Earth as a place ripe for conquest, a world filled with nothing more than weaklings and divided factions. But Kian and others like him would prove them wrong. Earth's people weren't broken or weak. They were survivors, ready to fight back. And the rage of a Deathworlder was something the Voraakians had never seen coming. The first wave of Voraakian invaders was swift and ruthless, a force so overwhelming that it struck fear into the hearts of humanity. They descended from their ships like a storm, deploying advanced weapons and tech that left the cities in ruins within hours. They had calculated that Earth's chaotic nature and its fractured political structure would make any organized defense nearly impossible. The humans they encountered would panic, surrender, or scatter, exactly what they had seen in every other planet they had conquered. But what the Voraakians didn't count on was the primal rage that lived in the hearts of Earth's inhabitants. When Kian witnessed the first attack on his city, something inside him cracked wide open. The Voraakians had crossed a line. It wasn't just about destruction anymore, it was personal. The moment the Voraakians started terrorizing his neighborhood, Kian's hands balled into fists. He was just one man, but his anger surged like a tidal wave. His instincts took over as his mind flashed back to the countless times he had fought to survive on Earth against hunger, poverty, crime, and now this. His world was under siege, but this time, he would fight back. In the early hours of the attack, Kian didn't know the full extent of what was happening. The Voraakian forces were too powerful, their technology too advanced. Earth's military was disorganized, overwhelmed, and outmatched. But when Kian saw the chaos, saw people running, saw his friends and neighbors being taken, saw the firestorm that the invaders left in their wake, a switch flipped. He couldn't stand by any longer. He grabbed a wrench, the only weapon he could find, and started moving through the wreckage, silently, methodically. What happened next wasn't a battle. It was a fury unleashed. Kian wasn't the only one to feel this sudden surge of rage. The moment he made his first strike, something inside him unlocked, a surge of raw, untapped power. It was as if Earth itself was calling him to fight back, to make sure that all the survival instincts he had honed over the years would finally be put to use. Kian's first attack was almost unthinkable. He didn't have fancy gadgets or heavy artillery, but he didn't need them. He took on one of the Voraakian soldiers, with nothing more than his wrench. The alien's armor was built to withstand impacts that would crush a human skull. But Kian's strike wasn't just physical. It was driven by something far deeper: rage, determination, and the raw fury of a species that had been pushed too far. The Voraakian soldier didn't stand a chance. The impact sent the soldier's head spiraling back, and within moments, Kian was on to the next one. Word spread fast. As Kian took down more invaders, others began to follow. The city, once on the verge of collapse, suddenly came alive with resistance. Ordinary people, mothers, teachers, students, mechanics, doctors, grabbed whatever they could to fight back. It wasn't organized. It wasn't clean. It was messy, chaotic, and brutal. But it was human, and that's when the Voraakians realized their mistake. They had thought they were facing a fractured, divided world, but what they hadn't accounted for was the unpredictability of human rage. Humanity's fury wasn't just fueled by the desire to survive. It was a collective anger, a shared rage that spanned the globe. Cities, countries, even factions that had once been enemies now found common cause. The Voraakians were no longer fighting just a resistance. They were fighting the full fury of Earth itself. The humans they had thought weak, scattered, and divided were suddenly a unified force, bound together by something far stronger than technology, their will. The Voraakian soldiers began to feel the weight of Earth's fury. The fighting escalated from small, individual skirmishes to all-out war. Kian's wrench was now a symbol, a rallying cry for those who refused to lie down and die. The weapons of the Voraakians, once the dominant force on any battlefield, were now being used against them, with human ingenuity turning their technology against them at every turn. Ordinary humans, people who had never fired a weapon in their lives, were now part of a battle that felt like the culmination of thousands of years of evolution. They had been honed by Earth's extreme conditions, and now they were fighting for survival, for revenge, for human dignity. The Voraakians were shocked. They didn't understand it. How could a species so disorganized, so fractured, be capable of such fury? They had underestimated humanity's capacity for rage, but more than that, they had underestimated the collective power of human resilience. Earth's inhabitants weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to show the galaxy that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they could make. It wasn't long before Kian became the symbol of this human uprising. His every action was a rallying cry for others to join the fight. And just when the Voraakians thought they had seen it all, a new wave of fury erupted, one that would shake their very understanding of what humanity was capable of. This was just the beginning. In the aftermath of the initial assault, the Voraakians were left reeling, scrambling to recalibrate their understanding of the species they thought would be an easy conquest. What they had assumed was a planet of weak, disorganized creatures, ripe for the taking, had turned into a living nightmare. They had expected humanity to be like so many others they had subjugated, fragile, divided, and easy to break. Instead, they were met with a force that they hadn't accounted for, a fury that could not be quelled. At first, the Voraakians believed the human resistance was merely a fleeting reaction, a temporary surge of panic and anger. After all, this wasn't the first planet they had invaded. They had decimated civilizations before with little effort. But as days turned into weeks and the resistance continued to grow, their assumptions began to crack. Every time they sent in a new wave of soldiers, every time they attempted to impose their technology and superior firepower on Earth, the humans adapted. And they adapted fast. The Voraakians' initial mistake was underestimating the psychological and biological strength of humans. They thought humanity's chaotic nature, fractured by internal conflict and political divisions, would make it easy to break them. But in reality, those very traits, humans' ability to come together despite differences, their unpredictable nature, and their unrelenting will to survive, became their greatest strength. The aliens learned the hard way that humanity was more than the sum of its parts. As the fighting continued, the Voraakian leadership began to receive unsettling reports. Earth's inhabitants weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to protect their way of life. It wasn't about land, power, or even technology. The humans were willing to die to defend their very essence, to prove that no one, not even an alien force, could erase their existence. The Voraakians had underestimated the emotional depth of humans, their ability to channel immense anger, love, and loyalty into action. One by one, the Voraakian commanders started to learn what the Voraakians had failed to see before: the power of unity. They witnessed firsthand how humans, faced with annihilation, could push aside their differences and form an unbreakable front. They saw how a single human's rage, Kian's rage, could ignite an entire rebellion. It was as if the very spirit of Earth had been awakened, and no force, no matter how advanced, could put it back to sleep. The Voraakians also learned something deeper, something more unsettling. Humans, when pushed to the brink, were capable of violence and ferocity beyond anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't just that humans were resilient or adaptable, they were deadly. The weapons they used might not have been the most advanced, but they were relentless, and they made up for their lack of technology with pure rage and resourcefulness. The Voraakians now found themselves at a crossroads. They had misjudged the humans and underestimated what they were up against. The resistance had shown them that Earth's inhabitants weren't merely fighting for survival. They were fighting to make a statement, to prove that no one could dominate them, no matter how technologically superior. They had learned that the human spirit, fueled by rage and determination, was a force more powerful than anything they had ever faced. The Voraakians had thought their conquest would be swift and easy. They had assumed that, like all the other worlds they had conquered, humans would bow to their superior technology and surrender their freedom without question. They were wrong. And now, they had learned the hard way that humanity's true strength was in their ability to fight back, to refuse to give up even when the odds were stacked against them. This realization came with a chilling understanding. The Voraakians had underestimated the most important factor in any war, the unpredictable, uncontainable fury of humanity. And now, the battle was no longer about technology or superiority. It was about a clash of wills. And the humans were proving that, when pushed to the edge, they would fight not just to survive, but to dominate. By now, the Voraakians had learned what they had failed to grasp in the early stages of their invasion. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their initial assessment of Earth and its inhabitants as weak, divided, and fragile was now thoroughly debunked. But this wasn't just about a handful of rebellious humans fighting back. No, this conflict had uncovered a much bigger picture, a fundamental truth about humanity that the Voraakians had missed entirely. The war wasn't just about a battle for Earth's survival. It was about the core essence of what it meant to be human. Humanity's resistance to the Voraakians wasn't merely a reaction to an external threat. It was the eruption of everything that made humans uniquely dangerous to any species that sought to dominate them. This was something the Voraakians would only begin to understand as the conflict progressed. It wasn't just the ferocity of their fighting or the tactical brilliance of their strategy. It was their ability to evolve and adapt on a level that made them unpredictable. As the Voraakian commanders began to understand this deeper truth, they had to rethink their entire strategy. What they hadn't accounted for was the human capacity for innovation under pressure. Faced with seemingly insurmountable odds, humans did what they always did best. They figured things out. Take Kian, for instance. While the aliens had initially underestimated him as just another human in the fight, they soon discovered that he wasn't just another soldier. He was the embodiment of humanity's potential when pushed to the edge. But it wasn't just Kian who held this power. All humans, under the right circumstances, could harness an inner rage that was an unstoppable force. The Voraakians realized that the true weapon of humanity was not their weapons, but their spirit and their mind. Humans could be on the brink of extinction, but they would always find a way to come back stronger. This was the larger issue for the Voraakians. They had long ago conquered other species by overpowering them with superior technology. But humans were different. They didn't just rely on physical might or advanced gadgets. They fought with something far more dangerous, their willpower. In many ways, the Voraakian conquest of Earth had become a lesson in the human psyche, and a lesson the Voraakians were reluctant to learn. With each encounter, each skirmish, they began to realize that Earth's greatest asset wasn't just its natural resources or its people's physical resilience. It was their capacity for ingenuity and collective strength. What the Voraakians failed to realize initially was that the human's chaotic, fractured nature was not a weakness. It was a powerful force when harnessed. This is what made humans so dangerous. The more the Voraakians tried to break the humans, the more they discovered that every effort to divide them only made them stronger. The very diversity and unpredictability of humanity became their greatest weapon. And that, in the Voraakians' view, was something that couldn't be calculated, controlled, or defeated with technology. As the resistance grew, the Voraakian forces found themselves at a breaking point. Human ingenuity was turning their own weapons against them. They had come to Earth with technology that could erase entire civilizations, but they hadn't accounted for the fact that humans would innovate faster than they could destroy. The very essence of this conflict became a paradox. The more the Voraakians tried to conquer Earth, the more they became embroiled in a war of ideas, tactics, and sheer human willpower. And then came the revelations that truly shook the Voraakians to their core. As Kian and other human leaders began to realize the Voraakians' dependence on technology, they began to exploit this weakness. The more advanced the Voraakians' weaponry became, the more predictable they became. While Earth's invaders relied on brute force and technological superiority, humans relied on something far subtler: creativity. It wasn't just about using force when necessary. It was about outthinking the enemy at every turn. As the battle raged on, humans began to create unexpected alliances, leverage the terrain in ways the Voraakians couldn't anticipate, and create new weapons and tactics that the invaders couldn't counter in time. Kian, with his training and unique mindset, embodied this creative resistance. He wasn't simply fighting the Voraakians head-on. He was finding ways to exploit their weaknesses with ingenuity and precision. This was humanity's true weapon, something the Voraakians could never predict, something they could never replicate. The larger question for the Voraakians then was not how they could defeat humans physically, but how they could deal with the unrelenting unpredictability that humans brought to the table. This realization began to sink in as the Voraakians watched their own forces falter. It became clear that, despite their technological might, they were now caught in a battle of ideas. And in this, they were terribly outmatched. As the Voraakians struggled to regain their foothold, one thing became increasingly apparent. Humans weren't just defenders. They were fighters, innovators, and creators, and they were not going down without proving it. The Voraakians now saw humanity not as a weak species to be conquered, but as a relentless force that could not be beaten easily. The invasion had become something far greater than a mere military conflict. It had evolved into a battle of wills. This understanding, the true essence of humanity's strength, was a game-changer. The Voraakians were now confronted with a question that no invasion plan had ever anticipated. How do you defeat a species that doesn't just fight for survival, but fights to assert its existence in the face of impossible odds? When the battle finally subsided, Earth was left in ruins, but not defeated. The Voraakians had underestimated the resilience of humanity, and in the end, they paid the price for it. As the alien forces retreated, many were left wondering, what now? The destruction was widespread, and the planet's resources had been ravaged. But humanity's victory came at a cost that no one truly understood in its entirety, until now. The immediate aftermath of the conflict was a world in recovery. Cities lay in ruins, landscapes scarred by the explosion of technology and military might. There were no instant celebrations or jubilant gatherings. The human spirit, while victorious, was tempered by the deep wounds of war. Families were torn apart, infrastructure shattered, and trust in external forces deeply eroded. Yet, amidst this devastation, something remarkable began to emerge: the strength of unity. In the days and months following the retreat of the Voraakians, Earth's survivors found themselves grappling with a new reality. The war, brutal as it had been, proved to be a crucible that purified humanity's resolve. People, once divided by borders, ideologies, and conflicts, began to see the world through a new lens. The invasion forced Earth's inhabitants to recognize that their survival wasn't guaranteed by their individual nations, but by their collective willpower and the shared responsibility of rebuilding what had been destroyed. The aftermath of the war had an unexpected effect. It redefined what it meant to be human. No longer were humans simply surviving, they were rebuilding. The very ingenuity that had fueled their resistance against the Voraakians now became the driving force behind their recovery. Scientists, engineers, and leaders, some of whom had been on the front lines, now shifted their focus to the planet's future, using the same creativity that had once brought them victory to rebuild Earth cities, stabilize ecosystems, and recover from the destruction. The war had revealed an untapped potential within humanity, the ability to not just recover, but to adapt in ways never before imagined. The world's governments, once fractured and focused on territorial dominance, began to evolve. The very nature of global politics shifted. With the human race united under the banner of survival, the need for borders and divisions became less important. Collaboration between nations became imperative. Earth's leaders knew that the next war would not be fought against alien invaders. It would be a battle against time, against the environmental collapse that had been accelerated by the war itself. But the most significant shift wasn't just technological or political, it was philosophical. The Voraakians had thought humans were weak because they were chaotic, disorganized, and unstructured. Yet, the war proved that these very qualities, when guided by a common purpose, made humanity a force to be reckoned with. The aliens had learned this lesson the hard way, but it was a truth that had changed everything. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or sheer physical strength. It was their ability to fight for their existence against all odds, driven by the fire of the human spirit. In the years that followed, Earth would enter a new era, one not defined by the scars of war, but by the resilience to rebuild and the determination to ensure that humanity would never be vulnerable again. Humanity had proved its place in the cosmos, not just as a species to be conquered, but as one that could fight back. And as Earth's future unfolded, it became clear that the human race was far more than anyone had ever imagined. The aftermath of the Voraakian invasion left humanity with much more than the physical scars of battle. It presented a profound shift in the very way humans viewed themselves and their place in the universe. For centuries, Earth had been regarded as just another small, relatively inconsequential planet in the vast expanse of space, its inhabitants vulnerable to more advanced alien civilizations. But after the war, after the alien invaders had been repelled by the very forces they had underestimated, Earth's future was poised for transformation in ways no one could have predicted. First, the defeat of the Voraakians would redefine humanity's role in the galactic hierarchy. For so long, humans had lived under the assumption that they were inferior to extraterrestrial civilizations, primitive, unrefined, and easily manipulated. The Voraakian invasion shattered that myth. Not only had humans fought back, but they had done so with a strength that none of the invading species had anticipated. No longer were humans a passive species on the sidelines of galactic history. They had now proven themselves to be a force that could hold its own against the most formidable of adversaries. In the years to come, Earth would gain increased diplomatic leverage in interstellar negotiations. Other alien species, who had once looked down on humanity, would now think twice before underestimating humans again. Earth's position in the cosmic pecking order had been irrevocably altered. The idea of humans as weak, fragmented, and chaotic was no longer a given. Instead, humans were viewed as resilient survivors, capable of improvising, adapting, and most importantly, winning against those who sought to dominate them. This shift would forever change humanity's approach to the stars, no longer a species on the defensive, but one that could potentially stand toe-to-toe with the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. However, this new status came with its own challenges. Earth's victory had been earned, but it also made the planet a target. The Voraakians weren't the only powerful species in the galaxy, and now that humans had proven themselves as capable adversaries, other extraterrestrial factions might see this as a challenge or a threat. Earth, once a quiet backwater, was now a planet that could attract attention, both positive and negative, from across the galaxy. Humanity would have to carefully navigate its newfound role on the galactic stage. The potential for future conflicts remained, but there was also a potential for cooperation. Trade, knowledge exchange, and even alliances with other species who respected humanity's newfound strength could help build a more secure future. This would require Earth's leaders to be far more cautious and strategic in their dealings with extraterrestrial powers. The war had taught humans that their survival wasn't just about fighting. It was about negotiating, collaborating, and forming relationships based on mutual respect. More importantly, the Voraakian invasion had revealed something far more profound. Humanity's greatest asset was not its technology or military prowess. It was its ability to think, adapt, and overcome obstacles. The invasion forced humans to innovate in ways they hadn't before, making use of limited resources, creating new weapons and defenses from scratch, and adapting quickly to alien technology. This ability to adapt would become a defining trait of humanity's future, not just in defense against alien invaders, but in every aspect of human society, from science and medicine to politics and economics. Humans had demonstrated an ability to evolve, to push past limitations, and to turn adversity into opportunity. Looking beyond Earth, the war also had implications for humanity's future in space exploration. The lessons learned from the Voraakian conflict would shape how humans approached their exploration of the cosmos. With newfound confidence, humans would seek out other planets, other civilizations, and perhaps even alien technologies. The galaxy, once a vast, intimidating expanse, now seemed a little smaller, and Earth's place within it a little more secure. At the same time, humanity would have to wrestle with the moral questions that come with such power. What does it mean to be a force in the galaxy? What responsibilities come with that power? Would humanity continue down the path of militarization, or would it shift its focus to peaceful exploration and cooperation? How would humans use their influence now that they had earned it? This newfound place in the universe also opened up the question of humanity's future on Earth. With so much destruction caused during the war, Earth's ecosystems had been severely damaged, and resources were stretched thin. Now that humans had survived the worst, they needed to consider how they could maintain their dominance in the galaxy without destroying the very planet they depended on. Sustainability, technological advancement, and a balance between growth and conservation would be crucial to securing a future not just for humans, but for all life on Earth. The battle with the Voraakians wasn't just about physical strength. It was a defining moment that forced humanity to confront its true power. Against all odds, the human spirit proved unbreakable, revealing that while humanity may have been underestimated by others, its capacity for survival, innovation, and rage in the face of existential threat was unmatched. The victory over the Voraakians wasn't simply a military one. It was a symbolic triumph of will, ingenuity, and the raw determination of a species that had fought for its place in the universe. This event changed more than just the fate of Earth. It redefined what it meant to be human in the vast expanse of space. No longer could humans be dismissed as fragile, primitive beings. They had shown that they could stand firm and fight back with a vengeance against any enemy, no matter how advanced. The Voraakians' mistake wasn't just misjudging the strength of humans. It was underestimating the one thing that no alien race could ever replicate: the boundless human potential. But as Earth moves forward from this monumental moment, it also faces new challenges. The galaxy has now witnessed the strength of humanity, and with this newfound recognition comes both danger and opportunity. The question remains: how will humans use their new power and influence? Will they take this moment to build a peaceful future, or will they become the very aggressors they once feared? The future of Earth is still uncertain, but one thing is clear: humans will no longer shrink away from the challenge of the unknown. They will continue to adapt, grow, and thrive, not just as survivors, but as active participants in the cosmos. And in this new era, humanity's story will be one of strength, resilience, and the untapped potential that comes from facing the most impossible odds and still emerging victorious. Now that you've seen how humans defied all expectations and showed the universe what we're truly capable of, ask yourself, what's next for humanity? The battle for Earth's survival might be over, but the journey is far from finished. We've proven that we can survive the impossible, But how will we use that power moving forward? Will we embrace peace, or will we rise to become the new, dominant force in the galaxy? If you enjoyed this story and want to see more of humanity's untold potential in the cosmos, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're ready to see how this all unfolds in the larger universe, be sure to subscribe, because this is just the beginning. Share your thoughts below. What do you think the future holds for Earth and its newfound place in the stars? How would you navigate the challenges ahead? Let's talk about it. Your opinions matter. This is a story of strength, survival, and humanity's resilience, and you're part of the story now. Stay tuned for more stories that show just how much more humans can do when we push the limits of our potential.